I know it's only January, but it's never too early to get into your tools of the trade. For me, that's fluking. If you look, I have a little fluke necklace, so it's one of my favorite species to catch. It's close to blackfish, and I always joke, depending on the season, like if it's the winter time, blackfish is my favorite fish to catch. If it's the summertime, fluke is my favorite fish to catch. But I like this seminar because it teaches you hopefully something new, a new technique for fluke fishing. And I always want people to, get something useful out of it. And maybe you catch your personal best on my tactic. It's not something I came up with. I'm not, like John Skinner over here, but it's something that works. And John Skinner, I don't even think does it, but anyway, I have a little personal peeve with John Skinner. He drives me nuts. So who am I? My name's Jenni Ackerman. I work for the Fisherman Magazine. I'm actually going to be leaving the magazine February 1st. I'm still going to be in the fishing industry though. I'm going to be working with Jigging World, but you'll still see me around. I'm still going to contribute articles to the magazine as much as I can, but I'm still going to be around, obviously. So if anyone wants like my email for any fishing questions, then you can reach out after the show. But just that's the soft launch of me leaving because I just announced that basically. But I'm a writer, I'm a rod builder, I'm a graphic designer, I'm big into conservation, and I'm a fishy angler for life. I'm a well-seasoned angler from freshwater to salt. I'm always trying to fish whatever season it is. Like I just got back from Marco Island and that was supposed to be like a nice family vacation, but I was fishing majority of the time. I was not around. Like, sorry, there's new species I want to catch, so I went down there to fish. I've been fishing my whole life. You can see here, that's me when I was little with a fluke. I did not catch on the Barbie rod. I caught it on an old-fashioned conventional because epic spot burn. If you're ever at the Manasquan Inlet, you can recognize that's the dog beach right there. There's the monument of the sailor holding the lantern. There's a really good hole right there where if you drop a live killie down here, you're gonna get a big fluke. So that's what I did when I was little. And I wanted to be a marine biologist when I went to school. So although I didn't get my degree in that, I got my degree in a BFA in graphic design and minored in marketing. So although I didn't get my degree in marine biology, I still study every species I target or want to target because it gets you that extra knowledge that the average angler might not have. And I love sharing my knowledge. I love teaching people how to fish, put people on fish. Like I started out at Grumpy's Tackle, and it's still a great passion of mine to have people come to me for like questions or help, and then I send them on their way, and then they like reach back out to me saying, hey, I caught my first striper off the surf or something like that. So that's where I started. Like I said, Fisherman Magazine, my open boat video series is still on YouTube. So we'll check that out after. I'll pull up the recipe. So this is a good icebreaker question. This is a funny joke for all the guys. Usually all my seminars are dudes. So it's a good question, does size matter? So for me, when it comes to fishing for any species, it doesn't matter. I'm happy as long as I'm catching something. I could go out fluking one day and catch that tiny little postage stamp and I'll be happy. Doesn't matter if it's a postage stamp, you're fine. The middle picture is when we had the good old slot. You guys remember that New Jersey slot regulation, that malarkey of a reg? Or catching my biggest fluke so far. This one is a mount. It was 12 pounds, 33 inches. So for me, this is where the conservation aspect comes into it. It doesn't matter if I'm catching tiny little fish or big fish. As long as I'm catching something, I'm happy. Because if you go out on a day, like when you're fluke fishing, specifically I can reflect back on how blackfish season's been inshore, and you go to a wreck and you don't catch anything, that's really concerning. It's concerning for one, your mental health. Like for me, fishing's my stress reliever. So I always joke that if I wasn't a fisherman, I'd be on America's Most Wanted. But when you're not catching, you're like, oh, come on, like, I need that tug, I need my rod bent, and you're not getting anything. It's also concerning conservation-wise, because where did those fish go? So there's a lot of factors that could be concerning for that, but for me, size doesn't matter. Don't tell my boyfriend. Fluke biology. So like I said before, I wanted to be a marine biologist when I went to school. So although I didn't get my degree in that, I still study every species I target. It's funny, I have a koi pond in my backyard, and before we moved there, the previous owner said they were keeping the koi on the property. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna learn everything about koi and take care of them. So I know like everything about every fish that I've encountered, even like pets. So I think it's funny that I take such good care of my koi, and then I go out and I like murder mass species of fluke and sea bass and blackfish and stuff. But anyway, so getting to know your target species can give you a leg up on the average angler, because you can know their migration patterns, what they're feeding on, when they're moving, like if they're inshore or offshore. Just getting to know them helps you out as an angler. And this first part's really funny because it's the Latin name. If you really want to mess with your fishing buddies and they ask you what you're fishing for, you hit them with the Latin name and they'll have no clue, unless they've been to one of my seminars. So the Latin name for fluke is Paralictus dentatus. So remember that if you want to screw with your buddies during fluke season. So they're bottom-dwelling fish that camouflage themselves in with their surroundings. So fluke fishermen out here, guys, this is when you interact with me in the audience. Raise your hands. If you've caught a fluke that's been really, really like light yellow, like light colored, raise your hand. I would hope, good. I'm glad you guys raised your hands because I hope you guys have caught fluke before. So when you get one like that, then that means they're hanging out on like sandy bottom. How about if you get one that's really dark brown, right? Have you guys caught a dark brown fluke? Yeah, so they could be on like a muddy bottom or a mussel bed, so they try to blend in with their surroundings as best as they can, because they're ambush predators, and they don't start off with their eyes both at the top of their head. As they're born, they're normal, but their right eye shifts to the top of their head. So that sounds good for a fluke, but imagine you have your firstborn child that looks normal, then as they start growing up, their eye migrates to the other side of their head. That's a little freaky, but that's why humans don't have it. That's what fluke and other flatfish do. It makes them perfect ambush predators. They have both eyes looking up for prey.
Do they change color on them by themselves, or like dark ones that just hang out in the mud and light ones hang out on the sand? I mean,
I think they do have like a color shifting like thing. I didn't look into it that extensively, but like, you know how chameleons
Yeah,
kind of change and like different
like
species can change colors? I think it's like that. They have something in their skin that does that. They typically live for 12 to 14 years. And this is a really good point for conservation. The females can lay between 460 to over 4 million eggs. So looking at stock status of fluke with just how much they produce, of course, not all those eggs are surviving because other fluke and other fish will eat the eggs, but that's a good number for yield for the future of fluking. And
when do they spawn?
They spawn in, I believe in the spring. I'm trying to think. Yeah, they spawn in the spring. Bear with me. This is my first seminar in over a year and a half, so I'm a little shot. But in the spring, because they move offshore in the winter and early spring, and then they'll move back inshore to shallow water during the late spring and summer. And then in the fall, they move offshore. But where was I going with this? Oh, so when you're fluking, cut open their bellies when you're done filleting them to see what they're eating. This is like the ultimate cheat code for if you're going back out. Say like you fluked on a Saturday, and then you're going back out again on Sunday to the same piece. Like say you're fishing out of Manasquan Inlet, the Axel Carlson. So you're like, okay, I'm gonna go back to my numbers I have on the axle. So you cut open their bellies and you can see, okay, these guys were all eating like shrimp imitations. And like, okay, I'll get like a gulp or a different artificial that looks like a shrimp. Maybe I can up my chances of getting a full limit or getting more bigger fish like that. So always cut open their bellies. I've had a lot of people email me some weird stuff that's been inside fluke bellies, like baby fluke, mantis shrimp. A lot of weird stuff has been found inside their bellies. And like I said, their migration patterns are seasonal. A lot of times it's interesting. This year even, I was on some blackfish trips this winter out off of Cape May at some of the offshore wrecks, and we dropped down like a little GoPro to see where the blackfish were, and there's fluke there. So something like happened with their migration pattern, something a little interesting happened there. We're trying to figure out what they're doing, because if you can reflect on the past couple of seasons, out front on the ocean, like it was a little crappy, to say the least. A lot of guys are doing better. Like for me personally, I live in Point Pleasant, so I'm fishing the Manasquan River. A lot of guys are getting big fluke back there, more in the backwaters than out front. So you reflect on those migration patterns where they're looking for the shallow, warmer waters, and that could be where they're at more. So I know a lot of guys were spending more time in the back than going out front to the ocean.
It seemed to be that way this year also.
Yeah, so.
We were pulling big fluke in the back bays in September.
Exactly, yeah. I don't care about ruining spots. It's not really ruining spots. I think every spot's ruined by now, but back by like me, there's like by the Barnegat, there were guys catching like from 5, the biggest one I heard was 13 pounds back there. And none of them went out front. So
Which is kind of strange because the water is really warm and everything that I've ever been taught,
Yeah.
once that water gets too warm, they pull out.
Exactly.
So what was different that kept them back there in the warm water? And it was shallow water also.
Food, probably. There was food there.
There's probably a lot of food, and plus the south winds we had really like made the ocean very cold. So it's like if I had a crystal ball, I could tell you where the 20-pound blackfish is too. But it's something that's important. Like you remember what happened seasonal wise. Like you can reflect on that. It's like keeping a fishing log. You remember what happened last year and you reflect on it this year. Going in, how many of you guys have boats? Okay, so not everyone. So growing up, I never had a boat. I still don't have a boat. I go on my friends' boats, and if you bake homemade cookies from scratch like I do, you don't have to pay for gas. So you might want to take up baking in the off season to get free boat trips. But I've been fluking on the beach. When I was in college, before class, I would go sunrise. I called it my sunrise shifts. I would go in the morning and fluke the beaches, and then like if I was working at Grumpy's, I would go after work. So the sunrise to sundown shifts I would call for jigging for fluke. So those, if you have time, I don't know how many of you guys are retired and you have all the time in the world, but like I'm not even close to retired. I see so take note on this, you retirees. Congratulations on retiring. But if you have the time to go and like before work, so go at sunrise, or after work, go at sunset. But if it's a Saturday or a Sunday, I mean, I wouldn't be going on the beach on the weekend, but incoming tide is really good to catch fluke too. And that's because the incoming tide not only brings in all the water, it brings in all the bait fish, and the predatory fish follow too. So that's a really good time. I always recommend going on a beach at low tide to look for, and this isn't just fluking, this is any species, striper, bluefish, anything. Go at low tide, identify those cuts into the deeper troughs, and then wait for the incoming tide to come in and push all that water and bait in, and the fluke too. So if you know the structure you're fishing and you can find those cuts and troughs, you're gonna up your chances of getting a fluke. And the biggest thing, I always joke, fishermen and patience aren't really two things that blend nicely together. Fishing the beach is one thing you need patience for, because it's not like you're on your boat and you're following your tracks back to a spot where you know you drifted over a ton of fluke and you got bites. You have to walk a lot on the beach to find fish. There's been days where like my phone's in my pocket and I've already reached my steps goal that morning instead of all day. So it's even more rewarding when you catch a nice fluke walking miles of beach. Just make sure you wear your sunscreen. And then when you're fluking off the beach, you're not surf casting where you're like casting really out far past the bar. Sometimes what I do is literally I'll just take my jig and I'll just pitch it out right past the trough. And then all you're doing is slightly jig, 1, 2, 3. Reel it half a crank, jig, 1, 2, 3. Reel it half a crank until it's, I kid you not, until it's at your feet. Because there's so many times where I will literally get fluke, I watch them come up out of the wash to bite my jig. Like they're right there. It's ridiculous how close they can be. And the rods and reels I like for the beach, obviously not that one. An 8-foot rod, so you have a little bit extra backbone for if you catch bycatch like bluefish, resident stripers, or God forbid you hook a cow nose ray, have fun with that. And then a 3,000 to 4,000 sized reel. That's what works best. And then going to the back bay. So I just talked about that, saying how good the back bay bite was, but a lot of South Jersey guys, there's a lot of, I don't know, like if you guys fish, where do you guys, PA guys, where do you fish out of Jersey when you go? Like Wildwood down there?
Long Beach Island.
Okay, yeah, so South Jersey, there's a lot of early season Back Bay fluke tournaments, and people kind of diss early Back Bay fluke season. Like, fluke season usually opens like early May, and that's a really good time to get big fish early, and you can tick off your fishing buddies by saying you caught your biggest fish already, and they're still dilly-dallying to get their boat in the water or stuff like that. So don't diss the Back Bay early season, and I'm talking Back Bay, I'm saying you got the rivers, like I go to the Manasquan River, the Barnegat Bay. Specifically, like I'll get into the story behind this picture. Obviously that's not me, but this is behind Island Beach State Park. And all those South Jersey little Back Bay areas, they're all estuaries, and they hold a lot of bait. And what did we just say about the incoming tide? What follows the bait in? The predatory fish. So it's a nursery back there in some of these spots where there's a ton of bait, there's a ton of other fish, and sometimes fluke will go after some bigger fish, and that makes them fatter and bigger. So you want to go for some bigger fluke. Take advantage of Back Bay. And you can wade back there depending on where you are. Just be careful on where you are, because behind Island Beach, I don't know how many of you guys have been to Island Beach State Park. So the backside though, backside Island Beach, yeah. So there's a lot of holes back there. It's pretty marshy. And there's been one time where I was walking back, I had my limit on a stringer, and I'm trying to walk as fast as I can because there's sharks back there sometimes, so I didn't want my fluke stringer floating in the water for too long. And I misjudged where I was stepping, and you can see that like mucky crap water. I took a step, and my whole leg sunk in to here, so I'm like this. This leg is on a hard surface, and this leg is stuck. So I had to like crawl myself out. So take like a walking stick or something so you're careful back there, or you can take a kayak or a small skiff to navigate those little twisty creeks and estuaries and bends to find some good fluking spots, because there's some really good holes back there that hold fluke, weakfish, rays, poundfish, cocktail blues, and some schoolie stripers. So you could really go for like a ton of different species while you're back there.
When's a good time? Is it May?
I would go May, and with how the past seasons have been, where the bite out front of the ocean hasn't been good, I would do all season, up through like August. Because usually with the regular patterns, usually a second wave of big fish comes in September. Like that's a good time. No, another spot. Don't slash my tires for giving away all these spots, but September, I like to go to the Klondike, because that's usually a big fish spot. But with how the past seasons have been, where the ocean's been so cold, I would focus a lot of your time on like the Back Bay, like the whole season, unless we get warmer ocean weather.
It's all that wind we've been getting. It seems ever since Sandy.
It sucks.
It's ever since Sandy, and I don't know what you can attribute it to, but ever since Sandy, it's wind, and
The wind ruins everything.
And that creates, you get those southwest winds, you get all that upwelling.
Yeah.
So, you're pulling your sinker up off the bottom, and it's ice cold. It feels like it's been sitting in the freezer.
Yeah.
And that shuts the bite down.
I blame the wind on everything. Even if I'm not catching fish, I blame the wind. Even if there is no wind. Or if I miss a fish, I'll be like, oh, must have been the wind.
What's the water temp for, best water temp for fluke?
Out front or in like the back?
Both.
As long as it's like warm. Like up to like, I don't know, like
Mid-60s.
I would say like mid-60s, yeah. Especially in the back, just be careful. If it's too hot, sometimes it gets a little funky, but you get sometimes like algae blooms and stuff back there with the heat kind of screws up your fishing anyway. But I would just always check the temperature like before you go, gauge it. I don't know if there's some apps that show ocean temperatures before you go, or you just have to go out there and check. But going back to the Back Bay, oh, do you have a question? Yeah, just shout it out. You have to raise your hand. This isn't school.
I was going to say that you're using the same technique where you're basically fishing close in the shore on the Back Bay, like trying to get.
So you're just lightly jigging, yeah.
Yeah.
So it depends on if you're on foot, then you're just same thing as the beach. You're just pitching it out and just jigging it, bringing it back in, and you're checking different spots. With a kayak or a small skiff, you can just drop straight down and jig as you're drifting. And then the gear for Back Bay, light spinning. I know some kayak fishermen like conventional because it's an easy click button. 6 to 7 foot rods with a 3000 series reel. And then real quick, I'll get into the story behind this because a lot of guys diss the Back Bay, like I said, for fluking. This guy was one of my customers at Grumpy's, and during like the summertime, like May through fluke season, basically, you get tunnel vision working at Grumpy's when a guy comes in saying they have to weigh in a fish. Because you have Island Beach right there, and the keeper size at Island Beach is 16 inches. So you're kind of just like blowing through weigh-ins, like writing down their names, taking their picture, weighing their fish, and then sending them on their way. So you're kind of, like I said, tunnel vision. So this is Mr. Woojak. I still call people by their last names because I'm polite, but this is Mr. Wooj. He was probably the 6th weigh-in I had that day. It was a Saturday, so he was busy. He's like, Jenny, I went away in a fish. I'm like, all right, go get it. I'm outside, I'm recalibrating the scale, I'm making sure everything's good. I'm writing his name in the book, and there's like wooden steps to get up to Grumpy's to where the weigh-in station is. And I kid you not, this is a fun part. This is if anyone's asleep, they wake up. I thought he face planted on the steps because he dropped this fish down and it just slammed. Oh God, I broke the projector. Oh no. So I thought he face planted on the porch. I was like, oh my God. And I looked down, he has this. And I'm like, where'd you catch that? Did you go on the boat? He's like, no, Jenny. I was behind Island Beach. I was like, dude, are you serious? And then he sent me that picture afterwards. Guess how much that fish weighed?
12.
Kind of close, not really. That's 12, or no, I almost said 12. 9.8 pounds. And he cut it open. See how fat its belly is? He cut it open. Those fillets were really nice too. But he cut the belly open. It was full of like the rain bait, like little spearing and rain bait. So don't diss the back bay, because you can get a fish like that. And you can get that fish early May and tell your buddies, hey, I caught a 9.8 pounder. What do you have to show for this fluke season? Fluke spot number 3, the boat. So ocean fluking can yield a lot of impressive doormats and tournament-winning catches. Obviously, all summer long, how many fluke tournaments are out there now? There's like a million. You can get some really big fish. Like my biggest fluke I caught off of Nantucket, but I've caught plenty of 8s in New Jersey. Not a 10 yet, a lot of 8s. But to effectively fish the ocean, obviously you have to set up on a drift and prepare for strikes. And fluking off the boat resembles a lot like beach fluking. You're always jigging off the bottom for fluke, obviously, because they're ambush predators and they're on the bottom. And when a fluke bites, this is funny. I have different like words to define fish bites. Like if you ever, side note, if you're a blackfish with me, don't stand next to me because I sound like a paranoid schizophrenic because I'm like rig fishing and like I'll feel a bite and I'll be like scratchy, scratchy. And I'll just like, I'll say stuff under my breath. And I've had people, it's good because I don't want to get mugged on a bite. I have people like move away from me when I'm talking like that. But when a fluke bites, you'll feel like, I call it the 3 tap, a tap, tap, tap bite. There's been times, sometimes it's different. Sometimes they swallow your entire jig. It depends on what you're fishing. But I always say to look for that tap, tap, tap bite because there's a method to it. So like here's your bucktail. Obviously you're backing this, like you're putting a gulp, like I put a 6-inch grub on here when I'm fluking the ocean. So that first tap, here's your fluke. That first tap, they're biting just the tail. Second tap, they're almost to the hook. That third tap, usually that's them working their way up to the jig head. So if you set the hook after that first bite, they're not even on the hook yet. So that's why I always say wait for the 3 tap system there. And bring the fish up at your own pace. Do not rush it, because big fluke will give you those big head shakes and they will dig too a little bit. Pumping the rod, do not pump the rod. The amount of times I've seen people pump the rod, I'm like, sweet Jesus, just hold it, relax, calm down. And you're gonna feel the head shakes, especially if you have like a nice rod that's sensitive. The head shakes will rock your world. And the biggest thing, if you came with your fishing buddy here today, take a good look at them. Consider, are they a good netter? Do you trust them with the net?
Keep the fish in the water too until the net is in.
Exactly, because they'll see it and they'll freak out. But question your fishing buddies. Would they be the type of guy that accidentally bonks the fluke on his head, spinning the hook, and drops back down to the surface? That could be your personal best fluke right there.
Wants to swim now.
Or worse. So consider that with your fishing buddies. I'm an excellent netter. I would never do that to anyone. So trust me. But just consider that. Make sure you have a good netter on the boat. And if you're by yourself, good luck. I've netted fish by myself before, but it's a little difficult. And then obviously gear, you can choose between spinning or conventional gear based on your fluking style. But if you already saw that the rod I dropped multiple times already, I like spinning. And this is a very light setup, and we're going to get into the tactic I like to use for fluke fishing, pitching up current. This is a simple tactic to add on to your skill set to improve you as a fluke fisherman. So let's get into it. There's me, and you can see that rod is right in the background. I call this the Hollywood rod. I built this rod, but I love it. It's an old All-Star blank that Grumpy actually gave to me, and I just rebuilt it from decorative rod up. So at the end of the seminar, if you want to come look at it, by all means, go right. So how to pitch up current. You're going to do a dummy drift over the piece you're fishing. So see what direction you're drifting in. And when you pitch up current, it only covers like a 4 to 6 foot area, but it works. I'll get to the pros in a second. Just trust me here. Follow me here. Don't fall asleep yet. You can fish the bow or the stern, and what's really cool is if you're tournament fishing, you can make this tactic work with 6 guys on the boat. I've done it many times before. And then what you want to do, obviously it's called pitching up current, and you guys are in horrific luck because I forgot my hook keepers on my rig. So you just pitch it out, and to get your rig to the bottom faster, you open your bail and you do one of these. So what that does, it lets more braid out faster. So you do that a couple of times, and you'll see your braid snake on the surface, and then once it goes tight, you know you're on the bottom. Reel in your slack so you feel as you're jigging. And what you're doing is you're not doing those giant traditional like big jigs with like a conventional or a heavy spinner. You're just lightly, you're in the danger zone. So I'm moving over a little bit. You're lightly jigging. Like see, I'm barely moving my wrist. But since this rod is a sensitive tip, it still can flutter and it does all the work for me. So you're jigging it as you're drifting, and then once you start like getting back into that drift, bring it back in. And why light jigging works, big fish are lethargic. Any species of big fish, they're fat and lazy. So when you have a light jigging action, instead of a traditional jigging where you go here to here, when you're lightly jigging, that bait stays in front of that fish for longer. So that gives the fish more time to register, hey, I'm fat, I want to eat that. I'm going to bite it now, instead of just saying, oh, what was that? And it passes right over them. Because you don't know if that 12-pounder, like say that the projector is the 12-pounder. If you're just jigging like this, you just pass right over them. But if you're light jigging, by pitching up current, that bait stays in front of the fish for longer. Watch, I'm going to break the projector. I'm going to do that again. So you're drifting. Yeah, you're drifting. And then 80% of the time, those big fish are going to come when the jig is directly in front of you. I don't know if there's a science to this, but this just happens to me all the time. I pitch it out, and I'm working it. I'm really scared for your safety.
No, you're good.
I'm not liable if you hook yourself. Notice how I said you hook yourself, not me hooking you.
Right.
So you pitch it out and you're working it, and usually like 12 o'clock, that's when I'm starting to get bites. And I'm like, okay. And usually by the time I get to here, I'm bringing a fish in. If I don't have any bites by here, that's when I'm bringing it back in, because you don't want to, as you're drifting, you don't want to, let too much line out and you don't feel anything. So this is a visual aid. Because I know that sounds so confusing, so I had to use an image. So you're drifting this way, casting into your drift, and you're working your jig until it starts, you don't want it scoping out. That's the biggest thing. So you're drifting, you're pitching up current. So the same current direction. You're jigging and you're working it. And by the time it gets to the back of your boat, you do not want to let line out, because all that does is scope out. And even if you do feel a bite, it's going to be, you're setting the hook basically, and that fluke is in Guam. It's not going to connect with the hook set. And it depends on the piece that you're drifting in, obviously, if you have a super strong underwater current, this isn't gonna work unless you have like a Rodan or one of those things that can help slow down your drift, or a drift sock, or you can go to Home Depot and get a bucket and throw that out there. So you wanna have a slower drift speed to make this work, especially with the lighter jig. But if you're drifting a bigger piece, you can pitch up current up to 10 times. A smaller piece, like 4 to 6 times, based off of obviously the size of the piece you're fishing on. So that's the visual aid for pitching up current. And then getting into the gear, there's me again with my rod. I love this rod. Obviously, you don't have to go the custom route like me. I've built like 13 custom rods. This other one is a custom I didn't bring with me because it's all rigged for blackfish, and this one was already set to go. But I like 6 to 7 foot rods, rated medium to medium heavy, and spinning rod, or spinning reel, excuse me, 3K sized and spooled with 15 to 20 pound braid. Don't let the lightness of your braid scare you. Lighter braid gets down to the bottom faster, and that's key for when it comes to pitching up current. You want to get your jig down to the bottom as fast as you can, especially if you're drifting over a smaller piece. And the biggest thing when you're drifting over a piece, I know so many guys that do this and I don't understand it because they're like just stuck in their superstitious ways. Do not just drift over like the top of the piece and say, okay, we're done. I want to see your tracks zigzag over that piece. Check every last inch of it, because no matter how seasoned or of an angler you are fishing these same pieces, those fluke could maybe have shifted a little bit downwards on the piece you're fishing. So check every single last inch of that piece as you're drifting over it. But like I said, the 15 to 20 pound braid gets to the bottom faster. And specifically what I use, this is a custom, this is an old All-Star paired with a Shimano Stratic. And then the other rod that I have there that I use for blackfish jigging is, unfortunately they discontinued this rod. I love the St. Croix Legend Extreme with a 3K Shimano Twin Power. But if you guys liked the St. Croix Legend Extreme, or you want to get your hands on something extremely similar, go down to Grumpy's in Seaside and try the Dreadnought, because that was built by our custom rod builder Bobby, who taught me how to build, and it is to a T, I would say even better than the Legend Extreme blank. So those are really good options.
What blank is that on?
It's like a custom built
A
one.
custom from Grumpy's?
Yeah. We made we went through everything of building our own blank.
Oh, gotcha.
And then made our own. So
Good.
it's really good. We've been using it right now for tog jigging. And I hate jigging, and I've been using it.
What's the retail on that, you know?
$169, I believe.
That's good
Don't
price.
quote me. It's in that price range, because
Yeah.
we want to make a good rod for the price. But going into your store-bought rods and reels, I know all you guys have personal preference with companies. Like I like Shimano for my reels. Penn Battle DX 3000 is a perfect one for this. Daiwa BGMQs, looking for the lighter reels because you don't want to get fatigued. And then rods, I'm not plugging them because I'm starting to work with them, but Jigging World, they make really nice ones. The Onyx, Night Ranger, and then Tsunami too. The
Airwaves?
Yes, the Airwaves, the Slim Waves, those are really nice options too for this type of combo, because you want light. You want a light combo. And look, I did the work for you. I have all of them listed there. I'm a silly goose. But that's just the price range from cheap to expensive, depending on how much you want to spend. But if you wanted to go in to a shop, go to Grumpy's and see the Dreadnought, because that's the only place that has them, and they're really nice. So the tackle I use for pitching up current, my Bucktail of choice is a 1 to 1.5 ounce Hoochie jig by Magic Tail. I like the glow. It's even glowing a little bit right now. Glow, and then his pink one has those glow squid tails. I like my glows. And then I don't use gulp. I'm like that one person out there that doesn't use gulp. I have good friends down in Florida. Their company is Q8 Superbait. They make really good imitators. They're more durable than gulp. And how many times have you guys bought a pack of gulp and it's mushy? one fluke, not even, you get a sea bass on there, that gulp is destroyed. You're down like $3 with how much they are now. So Q8s are a really good option. They're more durable, and I catch just the same amount of fish on there, and they last me longer. I know they're going to be at the Saltwater Expo in March too, in Edison, New Jersey. So if you want to go see my Florida friends, go support them because they're a Made in America company. So they're good people. That's what I use. I use a 6-incher on my bucktail grub, and then on my teaser, I'll do like a 5-inch grub. And then on my teaser, I also have a Tsunami hollow teaser. So this is nice and light. It's a skirt. There's no weight to it because you don't want added weight to this rig. The only weight you want is on your bucktail. So I have that hollow teaser, and then for when I'm fishing in the ocean, I do a 6-0 bait holder hook on my teaser. When I'm fishing in the back bays, that's when I do a 3 to a 4-0 bait holder hook. So of course, all those items you can get at your local tackle shops. Q8, I know they have a website. They're on Amazon right now, but they're kind of weaning off of Amazon. And you can get them at Grumpy's too, on their website too, they have them, so.
Have you tried the Z-Man Dormata?
So sometimes when I'm jigging in the Manasquan River, which is a jig head, that's what I use, but specifically for this tactic, I just use that.
That's a real durable bait too that doesn't get torn up.
Exactly, that's the big point too, because it's so expensive for baits. But that's just a price listing if anyone wants to take a picture of that. Don't quote the prices on there with tariffs and inflation. I don't know if they've changed, so you can't price check me.
Yeah, everything's going up.
So here I am putting my degree in graphic design to good work by designing you literally the rig that I use. So starting off, like I said, your 1 ounce to 1.5 ounce bucktail on the bottom. This is a really easy rig to tie to. You're direct tying your bucktail to a uni knot, and then 5 inches up from that or about, you do, I call it the double down dropper loop. I don't know if that's even a thing, but it's when you hook your, you put your hook through the dropper loop, you twist it once. That's a normal one. I twist it twice. I just do that. I don't know. I think it's cool, but I do that. Obviously, with your hollow teaser, like I said, 30-pound fluoro, and then 12 inches from the swivel, 6 inches from the dropper to the bucktail. And then you might be saying, why do you have a barrel swivel on there? Because I prep the night before I go fishing. I pre-tie all my rigs, and I include the barrel swivel because if I break off and I have gross, slimy, fishy sunscreen fingers, it's gonna take me a while to do a uni to uni knot. How much time do I have? Am I like running behind here? No, we're fine.
It's 10 after.
We're fine, we're trucking. So putting that barrel swivel on, it's easy if you break off, you just quick tie a uni knot and you're on your way. So you're good with doing that faster. And a pro tip is never reuse the same rig. I don't care if you're fishing for stripers off the beach, if you're black fishing, especially if you're black fishing, for Christ's sake, do not reuse the same rig. Because even if you don't see little like shapes in your leader material, there could be some there, and that could be the one time where you have like your doormat fluke on and it breaks, and you see that it doesn't break at one of your knots or anything like that, it breaks right in the middle. That's because you have frayed line. So never reuse the same rig. I don't care if you just used it one time before. Like this rig I use specifically for seminars, I'm never using this in the ocean or fluking. This is for seminars only, because I don't know what is in this carpet that could be screwing up my line.
They get chafed
Oh no,
up.
I broke it again. Bear with me.
There you go, you're back.
Benefits to pitching up current. Like I said, this is a tournament winning and trophy fish tactic. So a lot of my bosses at Grumpy's have won tournaments doing this. I did this tactic in Nantucket and I got like absolutely like roasted by the captain. He's like, what is this? Where's your chicken rig? And I tried my best to make it work because Nantucket fishing is a lot different. You're using like heavy sinkers and stuff, but I caught my biggest fluke on that tactic, so he can go pound salt. Light tackle setups don't cause as much fatigue as a conventional would. Like I said, come and feel how light this rod is. Because when you're fluking all day long, especially in the heat, and especially your tournament day, your arm is getting tired. Because you're sitting there just doing this all day. Like your arm, I don't care if you're young or old, like you're gonna get tired. And it keeps the bait in front of the fish for longer. Like I said, those big fluke are really lazy, so it gives them more time to chow down. And with a light jigging rod with a sensitive tip, for me personally as a rod builder, I feel they're more easy to control just because you're always in contact with your whole rig system while it's down there. And those big fish certainly feel good on a light tackle setup. This is the one time where I promote using light tackle for fish. Don't do it for stripers because they get tired, but catching a doormat fluke on light tackle is fun. And I always say, like, I try to make the best out of every single trip. There's always funny stories that come out of a trip, and I always just say a bad day fishing is better than a good day at work. So the biggest thing when it comes to fishing, especially with the past seasons we've had of how crappy they were, be positive, because you never know when you're gonna catch your big fish. So I always try to come up with goals every time I go fluking. So obviously the one goal with this rig, obviously there's 2 hooks on there, so obviously I want to double up on some fish. So that's usually my goal because it always feels like a bigger fish than it is. I don't care if you have 2 tiny little postage stamps on there, it still feels awesome. So this is a funny trip. This is all the same day. So earlier in the morning, I double up, and you can hear the dude Steve in the background roll. That's going to be a tough one to beat. And then this is later in the day. Doubled up again on a nice big fluke. And then a little tiny, the second one was an Island Beach Keeper, but that's why I always say, always set your goals up for having a good trip. And that's it, you guys made it, you survived. So thank you for coming. If you have any questions, come up. If you want to look at this rod, let me put the hooks back on before. And then if you guys want, like I said, I'm a graphic designer, I make cool fishing stickers. Scan this QR code, it goes to my Sticker Mule store where you can buy my stickers. I have like a fluke sandwich one, I have a lot of cool ones on there, so if you want to support me and get some stickers, I love seeing them when I'm out and about fishing. I see them everywhere. I have some cool tog ones, I even have some freshwater ones too. So check those out, and if you have questions, just come up and see me. You're free to go.
Thank you. Do you ever, off the beach, do you ever use the Lucky Craft
I did a video with Shelly on that, but I never got into
some
it.
suspending?
I never got into it. It's just something.
Dive into right off the lip.
Yeah, it's really good. It works. Also, I have a seminar at 3:30 if you're not sick of me and you want to talk stripers. So, yeah. What's that? Inshore they are. Inshore they are a lot.
This year, I'm just curious because you mentioned that since I've been doing it.
I fished the Dumont and the molasses last week and it was dead. I kid you not, I dropped down a perfect crab with all the crab cheese on it. Not a bite. So they moved offshore. If you wanted to go, you need to have a good weather window to fish the offshore sea bass pieces, because that's where the big flatfish are now.
200 feet or what are they?
I would do like 200, yeah. Offshore wrecks.
Well, 80 miles.
What part of Virginia are you from?
And there's